My name is Danny Mulvihill, and you're listening to the Mind State Podcast. This show is all about unlocking our own next level of performance and human potential. Thanks for listening. Let's get it. Welcome back to another episode of the Mind State Podcast. It has been a while, but today is going to be a lot of fun. My guest is Stephanie Welch. She's a sex and intimacy coach and has a really fun metaphor, analogy. I always have to look those two things up and figure out which one is which. But anyways, we're going to talk about the 3 phases of female arousal, and she has a beautiful framework to walk guys through that to know, I don't want to give anything away, so I'm going to stop there. So Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you, Danny.
Yes.
I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, so tell me about why are we here today? What are we going to talk about?
Well, there's a little bit of a problem in society. People are familiar with there's a loneliness epidemic out there, right? And a lot of people are struggling with things that, a lot of people are out there, say, on dating apps and things, trying to find people. That's a problem. But, even in the context of relationships, a lot of people, I almost want to imagine like the majority of people are not having the satisfying and fulfilling intimate lives that they would really like to have, even if they do have a partner. So there are a lot of reasons for that, but a big reason is that there really is just no educational system or anything that we can look to help us in these areas and in the way that we need to. You get something in late elementary or early middle school of some sort of little sex ed class that's, just there to try to make sure no disasters happen. And then you move on to porn as the only thing that is out there to look at. It's not the only thing, but there are not a lot of resources that are out there either that people know or that's accessible or, that they readily find. And that has become so ubiquitous that it's just been a source that people have gone to as where else am I going to learn anything? So part of my life exploration has been in figuring out what's going wrong, what do people need to know, what do they not know, and how can they learn it in terms of how to have better intimate lives. And the fact that it's not just something you either have or don't have, it's not like an innate talent, but just like everything else, it's a set of skills and capabilities that every person has to learn and develop in order to have the kind of experiences that they want, to have good interactions and relationships with their partners and other people. And, just like if you were, say you're wanting to learn how to work out, you could just walk into a gym and you say you've never been in there, you've never seen anything before. You could just walk in and start picking up weights and swinging them around and, jump on this machine and try to do something and run around in circles. And I feel like when people talk about how to learn, if they're not, pointing to porn, they'll talk about things like, you got to learn what you like. And so they'll suggest self-pleasure, masturbation as ways to explore. And that is informative to an extent. Mm-hmm. But again, it's like walking into the gym with no knowledge of what anything is or what to do with it. And I had, a thought at one point that it's almost like we need personal trainers, but in the bedroom. Right. Because imagine if you had, if each person had an opportunity to learn from somebody who actually knew what they're doing, who actually could give them guidance and support and say, oh, okay, well, this is your starting point. You should come over and try this weight. This looks like about the right, about the right weight for you. And let me check on your form here because, you don't want to be right. Yeah, sure. Yeah. You could, start with that part of the conversation, but that's not in our repertoire. So
it's so taboo in general. So at least among men, you hear about this idea of locker room talk. Uh-huh. And I don't even really do that. I'm not, now I've been married a long time, but even when I was just dating single, I was never one to go talk about the experience. It was the extent of it was yeah, it happens. and that was it. You know,
Right.
it was never like how to think, like get better, or was it positive, or obviously it was always like, oh yeah, it was amazing.
Bragging
So,
rights.
I see yeah, exactly. And I think women to some more extent will go in a
We
little bit more
talk
depth,
more.
share more
Yeah.
details. But even still, would you say that it's from this perspective of how to get better, or like find pleasure more themselves?
Well, we talk about a lot of things, but one of the problems is, again, just like I was saying, most women don't actually know what they like or enjoy or why, because again, we've never had teaching or instruction about this. And there are certain patterns of behaviors and activities, things that people think of as foreplay, that is surprisingly common, that is surprisingly ineffective. And
What's one thing that people talk about as foreplay and turns out to not be so effective?
well, so a big misconception I think about foreplay is it's the stuff that happens after you get the clothes off, but before you have sex.
Oh,
And so there's a pattern that I feel like a lot of men have picked up, learned, heard something along those lines. There's a sequence that people tend to go through, and women don't necessarily know differently or better what to ask for all the time. We also don't like to make the guy feel bad when he's trying something. There's a lot of reasons. We'll probably get into more of them, but there's this one particular pattern that I see all the time, and it starts with there's maybe some physical contact, making out starts, so like kissing is involved, and then maybe it moves to kind of like hands reaching down, fondling, touching somewhat, and then it seems to go from there to like, let's get the clothes off. And then there's something that happens when the breasts are revealed. It's like they're bullseye targets right there. And so like his mouth immediately dives in for the bullseyes. And then, the rest of the clothes come off, and then he works his way down to go down on her, now, getting the mouth involved. Right. And then all of that is supposed to warm her up enough to be ready for sex. Right?
Okay.
I would throw the whole thing out the window.
Yeah, okay. So the book's thrown out. Maybe now is a good time to like dive right into the 3 phases of.
Yeah, it's great. So one thing, there was a point at which people were very clear that men and women are very different. In recent years, there maybe seems to have been a little bit of confusion about that, and some ideas that we could just decide maybe we're not the one that we were born, or we could change that, and as if they were sort of fluid and just interchangeable. And now, don't get me wrong, like people's individual self-expression, like absolutely wonderful, great. Everyone should be encouraged to express themselves in the world in whatever way they enjoy the most. But recognizing that there are really ingrained differences between men and women is actually important. I was even led astray about that somewhat in college, like from like gender studies courses where they try to talk about everything is socially constructed. A lot of things are socially constructed. However, our biology and psychology has been programmed by evolution of millions, even billions of years of all the things that have led up to where we are now. Yeah. And so men and women have extremely different reproductive strategies. Women can only produce one offspring in a long period of time, high level of investment. It's very different from how men are able to spread their genes into the world at virtually an unlimited rate. Yeah. These very simple facts have all kinds of impacts on our biology and psychology and how we operate. And one of the downstream effects of that is what turns us on. And so how we become aroused. So most people kind of understand that for men, arousal can be fairly quick and spontaneous, right? So some kind of stimulation physically, or some kind of visual,
even visual stimulation is plenty.
Right, yeah. So visual or physical stimulation can be entirely enough to get the guy going. And in doing so, that arousal can help allow him to kind of, forget the rest of the world and get away from his distractions and pressures and relax and come back into his body and start to feel that. So also speaking of physical stimulation, so one way that many men would find desirable and enjoyable is if his partner reaches down and puts her hand, say, on his groin, and maybe a nice soft comforting covering, or maybe some movement or stimulation there. Many men find that that's something that they would like and enjoy as kind of the initiating factor to realize that their partner is interested and excited sign. And right, great. So naturally, since that's something that he thinks that he would enjoy, he often thinks that would be something that she would enjoy.
I've never.
Never, no, I'm sure not, right? But yeah, newsflash, no. almost never. Now I can't say never, but the way that women move into arousal is very different, generally speaking. And so when we receive touch like that, even if it's in the context of a wonderful, loving relationship with somebody who, in every way makes us feel comfortable and all that, it still feels invasive and jarring and out of place and actually disconnecting, and typically has a negative impact on her interest or arousal, particularly if it's from the starting point. As we get into it more, I also talk about how hands are not the best tool for stimulation, even when it does come to the physical stimulation, but especially not as seeing that as the starting point. Yeah. So the three phases of female arousal.
Real quick, you started by saying that because of our biological differences in reproduction and what it costs or what it takes to raise a kid, that's what leads into these preferences for arousal. So I wanted to dig into that just a little bit more. Why does the fact that, I can impregnate thousands over the course of, a few days, really, if you really got into it, well, maybe not a few days, that's ridiculous. But anyway, versus, 9 months to raise a child, how do those two facts play into preferences for arousal?
There's a lot of details that we could get into there. It's a much higher risk and higher investment for women to engage sexually at all. It's easier for us to suffer negative effects, whether it is an unwanted pregnancy or the contaminations and things like that. We're vulnerable in a lot of ways, and some of it also has to do with even understanding the commitment strategy or lack thereof that the guy is using, which is he has biological feedback mechanisms that encourage his behavior to differ depending on whether his body is getting signals of how sexually successful he's being or not. So every time an ejaculation occurs, it changes the hormone production for the man to indicate whether or not he should be trying harder to impress and procure a mate because he's not having very much success, or if he seems to be having a tremendous amount of success, his body wants to encourage him, things seem like you're doing great, let's conserve energy, let's not put any more investment in this, the women are coming to you, you don't need to put any more effort. So there's there are biological feedback mechanisms to influence men's behavior based on the body's perception of sexual success in the environment. And then at the same time, women's strategies are trying to, there's something called the Red Queen theory where it has to do with this analogy from Alice in Wonderland, where the Red Queen, the premise of the Red Queen is in that land, you have to run as fast as you possibly can just to stay in one place. And it's this idea that each organism in a niche is competing with the others in a way that they're always just trying to get ahead. And it actually applies even to men and women. Like, as members of the human species, each, like, men and women's strategies are always trying to advantage themselves slightly more. Sure. And so things like fertility being relatively obscured, so that it's sort of incumbent on them to take as many opportunities to try to impregnate a woman as possible, because it's not so obvious. Unlike, say, other animals, which have a mating period and they're very...
it's very obvious.
Yes. They're very, very vocal, or very... very clear, like, I'm fertile now, let's please come and efficiently handle this transaction and then move on, with, the rest of our existence. But for humans, we took this thing that, it's not just that we have sex for pleasure. You could think of it like we have pleasure for sex, meaning that the reward exists to encourage us to behave in the ways that were evolutionarily successful.
Totally.
So we took something in our species that was originally a motivation for reproduction and expanded upon that use to make it a tool for social bonding and cohesion and those kind of things, because we're a species that doesn't just reproduce by mating, dropping off an egg somewhere, and going about our business. No, we have this huge investment in offspring, to the extent that we do what's called cooperative breeding. Like, these don't seem that related, but ants, bees, insects, you have a colony in which you only have one reproductive member of the colony. And it doesn't die out. It doesn't require all the members to be equally reproductive. It's a group effort to produce and, caretake the next generation. Mm-hmm. And so humans actually practice a version of that, where we developed our mechanisms and our methods for, like, growing, the length of gestation, the amount of time spent in growing from infancy to, through having a childhood stage, adolescent into adult. Mm-hmm. These things were possible in the context of a robust network of caretakers. Right. That was not just about a single pair of biological parents. And so we have all of these strategies that developed to help us create a cohesive network. And some of those are the sexual strategies of who were, even the fact that even when a woman is pregnant, like, she can't get pregnant again, right, but she could still be receptive and encouraging the men to continue to stay in the community, to continue to provide resources, to, like, participate in this thing that is ultimately to the benefit of her offspring. So everything about our behavior and motivations and drives comes from these competing strategies of how our biology works. So the more that you understand that that's where it comes from, it's easier to just, like, understand, to accept, and to make peace with our nature and not fight against it, but instead realize, okay, this is what's going on here. This is what's motivating us. And if we work with that, we can actually, have better outcomes and have a really good time. But all of these things are coming from the essence of the motivations and the drives that we have based on the evolutionary patterns of success over time. So that's kind of a long answer to that question.
Sure. So to continue to develop this 3 phases, mm-hmm, I want to start by something you told me one time, that you've worked with, like, coached clients, men who've been married a long time and haven't had sex for a year, 5 years, mm-hmm, 10 years.
10, 15, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That blew my mind when you told me that. I was shocked.
Yep.
And I just like, that's the context I want to paint. And now let's dive into this metaphor you have for the 3 phases of female arousal.
Okay. Well, one thing I feel like I want to say first from that is just that there is a misconception that women don't like or enjoy sex that much. And it's not true.
Yeah.
What they don't like is the things that have typically been done to them by people who just don't know any better and don't have the right skills and awareness around what actually turns them on and what actually works for them. And when it comes to these guys who have been married for decades, often, 20, 30 years, and they're often confused. They say, my wife has lost interest in intimacy. It might have been good in the beginning, maybe or maybe not. But even if it did seem good in the beginning, something has gone wrong, and he cannot understand why, because all he ever wanted was to please her. And this sort of noble seeming altruistic motivation has yet somehow not resulted in her wanting to be pleased by him all the time. It's very confusing, very challenging, and neither party understands why, and neither of them are happy about it, but they don't know what's wrong. They don't know how to fix it. So what really is going on there is that she has continually learned to distrust his touch over time because she associates it with a sexually focused agenda that skips over some of the things that she needs to feel before she can get turned on. And it's typically, again, coming from this desire and drive that he has to want to please her, but to mistakenly think that she is turned on in the same ways that he is, and to follow certain patterns of the things that he thinks are supposed to get her aroused, like those items of foreplay that we discussed, that are probably not the most effective ways to do that. So whereas he has wanted nothing but to please her, what she experiences is here he is coming with his agenda again, and this sex that he wants to have is not about me, it's about him. He thinks it's about her, but she feels it's about him because because there's a disconnect.
And one thing, because you told me this and I also loved it, was the mindset shift that can happen. Guys in this situation will think, oh man, I just can't get this right. Maybe it's what's wrong. And pointing out that she doesn't want this situation either. She would also prefer to have great regular sex too. And that little micro shift, I think, can be enough to be like, oh yeah,
right.
I have a partner in this. We can figure this out.
Right. Yep.
As opposed to just assuming she doesn't like sex or something.
Exactly. That happens a lot is they get to that point and they've tried so hard for so many years. And again, they've had this, all I care about more than anything is her pleasure and wanting to take care of her. And so what's wrong? And they develop this resentment and bitterness and sometimes just lose hope in trying to fix it. But that bitterness and resentment towards her, it does sometimes get to soften when they realize this is her life is not the way she wants it to be either. This is not her preference. Yeah. She doesn't want to be avoiding your touch. She doesn't want to be sitting on the other side of the room watching TV with you. Her ideal life and experience would involve all the closeness, all the sex that you want, maybe, I don't know, maybe not exactly, but pretty, way more in the ballpark. Way more in the ballpark. And of similarity. So the fact that it's not happening is symptomatic. There's a problem, there's a disconnect. She's not happy about this either. She doesn't know why. In fact, the issue with the differences in how men and women get turned on, again, women don't know this either. So they actually tend to internalize and feel shame when their partner that they love is trying to touch and connect with them, and it's not turning them on, and in fact it's making them want to pull away, and they start to feel like something's wrong with them. Yeah. And they can't, they're like, I love this guy, she wants to be turned on by you, she doesn't know why it's not working either. she may try to ask for things like, I just want to, like, can we cuddle more first or something, which is she's on to something, but it's not fully understood. So yeah, the disconnect has been there, and it can be fixed. And so that's one of the things that I coach people on a lot, is how to start working back through these phases so that she can start to learn to trust the touch again of the man that she loves, and kind of reset. And some of it involves changing your physical habits. Some of it involves changing your mindset. Some of it involves communication and starting conversations with someone around this, because if she's so, her nervous system has been on guard around this for so long that she may not be able to just feel something different right away. She may need to hear some reassurances first that, like, there's been something that's on my mind that's been really bothering me for a while now, and it's been hard to share, but I really care about you and our relationship, and I want to make this work, and I miss the times that I love you and everything that we have and our kids and what we've built together, but I miss this thing that we used to have, this spark and this fire and things, and I know I've been a big contributor to this. Like, I know I have. Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I know that a lot of this is coming from me, but I've really been thinking about how to approach this, and I want you to know and understand that, like, that my desire for touch and connection with you is not just about getting sex. I want to be able to show you with my touch that I love and care and appreciate and enjoy you in every way, in every moment. And I want you to have a chance to feel that from me. I know it's probably felt like for years now that every time my hands come at you, I'm just trying to get something out of you. And I feel so bad about that. And I wish I could fix it. And, I wonder if you would be open to feeling this from me, and knowing that I'm not trying to push you, I'm not trying to get anything out of it, but if we could just try maybe creating some physical connection again. Like, I'd just like to hold your hand more. I'd just like to, like, put my arms around you, like, sit close to you when we're spending time together. And, like, would you be open to trying that with me? Because I think it really would help me start to feel more of the connection that I've been missing, that's been really hard on me. That's like, it makes me, the lack of that makes me question things that I don't want to question, between us. And I really want to show you that I want to show up in this way and make you feel safe and connected, and, physically show you that without it seeming like I'm just trying to, get some or whatever.
So it sounds like if a guy is in the situation, it starts with a conversation. Like, there's not some smooth turn-on technique that you can bring home. And
it depends how bad the disconnect has gotten. Some people have maintained a certain level of physical connection in spite of that. There's, say maybe they've got, like, hugging and kissing happen, but, like, it never goes further than that. There's always a roadblock. Uh-huh. So sometimes if you still have a precedent for at least some amount of physical connection, there are ways to start with that by changing your approach a little bit, and a lot of it is slowing things down, and also beginning to understand the signals that your partner is giving you in, like, nonverbal communication, and starting to pick up on where she's at, and when you may need to, when she may actually be receptive to escalation of things, and when you maybe need to dial it back, and continuing to do so to the point sometimes that, or often, can involve having a conversation. Because if especially when these things have built up over decades, there is a lot that is going to have to get unpacked, and ultimately you can't skip over it in order to get to things back to normal. So you have to keep slowing back down enough to get to the point where, okay, we're starting to understand each other and connect on this. So yeah, conversations often do have to be part of the puzzle, but there's a whole lot to again with the mindset about it and strategies, because one thing, well, maybe we should go back and go through the 3 phases.
Yeah, sure.
For
good call.
Yeah. So okay, so it's really not all that complicated.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the first phase is really the emotional relaxation and safety phase. And this is the one in which what she needs, unlike how a lot of men, as we said earlier, can get turned on and just like forget about everything else because they get into their body that way. Yeah. That doesn't work the same for women. We have to be able to set everything else aside and get everything else off of our mind before we can get into our body. So it's a different order of operations involved in that. And so there are a lot of things that can be on our mind or even in our body getting in the way of us getting fully back into it. Those can be things like, it can be internal issues. It can be pain, like the headache thing. Yes, a headache actually would get in the way if that's what was really happening. But pain, exhaustion, maybe she does just really need to sleep right now. It can be those kind of things. It can also be all kinds of external distractions. It can be work, responsibilities, kids, personal obligations, stressors out there. Yeah. If she can't get those out of the way, she's going to have a really hard time getting into the body. And then, of course, it can also be the factor between the 2 people in the interaction. So if you guys have had a recent argument that's unresolved, if you've got long-standing resentments and things built up over many years that are just like continually, nagging and irritating, those can get in the way. And then if in this moment, which is likely to be happening if the pattern has been there for a long time, if in this moment she doesn't feel connected and like you're being fully present with her, that's going to get in the way too. So she has to have all of these things cleared out of the way and off her mind to be able to be getting back into her body where she can even begin to access arousal. So whereas the guy will have a tendency to want to come in and think, oh, if I want to turn her on, I should give her the physical stimulation that I would think I would want. Yeah. That's going to completely put the cart in front of the horse, or to getting her back into her body. I think what was the term? It's like more sanctuary than seduction. Like she needs at first, what she needs is a demonstration that you are there for her and fully present with her. And if there's anything that's getting in the way, she may need you to show up to help resolve that before she can actually start to get turned on by you.
Well, I have a question to dig into that a little bit. You listed things like, personal obligations, work, kids, I would imagine are a huge factor a lot of times for a lot of people. The list, it gets long pretty quick. And so I wonder how you would coach guys thinking about how do I solve all of these problems? Right. Whereas sometimes at least there's this idea in my mind that, we have all that. And I can imagine that the guy would be like, if we could just get it on, I promise you it's going to that'll feel better. And how do you get a guy to create that sanctuary? I like that example you used. Because solving all her personal obligations, her work issue, it seems almost insurmountable maybe.
It does sound like a big list. And it's, this is one of the things too, that it gets harder over time unless you've cultivated a life to try to make these things easier. When people first start dating, one, you don't have a history of baggage and emotional challenges and things to work through. You're it's like a fresh start. So you don't have that sort of thing. When it comes to the distractions and outside obligations, in dating, you have to schedule time on your calendar to show up and to be together and to put all the things aside. And so, well, and also sometimes you're younger at that point, so the physical challenges and aches and pains and stuff haven't built up as much.
Yeah.
So in some ways, this is one of those things that there's not a quick fix for everything. That like the more, just the same way that when we think about our nutrition and fitness, the choices that we've made over a long period of time have shaped the state that we're in now, and a lot of things might have to change to put it back where we want it. So, but even if you think of like all the things that we had to do, back when we were dating, like if we need to schedule time to get away together and focus on what we want to do is just get present with one another, rather than think we're gonna, okay, let's have a weekend so that we can get away and have more sex. You have to think like, let's find a day or a weekend or an hour or something where we can agree to just show up and just be present with each other. And that can start to have her feel that he's showing up. It's not going to require that every problem actually gets solved every time, but she needs to get into a state where she feels that he is fully present with her and whatever is going on with her at that time. And if she is in a state where she is able to let those things go, if they have created a moment or an environment or ideally cultivated a whole lifestyle that makes it easier to do these things, then you can get into a good place. Or and she hopefully, as a relationship partner, ideally she's going to have a motivation to want to be working with him too. Like she understands he's not happy with this, and she wants to feel these things too, right? So it depends on the level of what is getting in the way. And so for him to be able to show up based on whatever's actually happening in the moment, this starts to connect to the driving analogy, really, because this has been another way that I found it really helpful to explain to people about understanding what's going on with your partner and making adjustments as if, the man is in the driver's seat of this vehicle, and knowing that your woman wants you to take her on a sensual journey. And this, I get a little chills when I say things like this. I'm like, yeah, that's good. But she wants that. But what she wants to feel is that he is a safe, controlled driver who's paying close attention to the passenger and the state that she's in. And when she's feeling good, when she's receptive to him, this is what I call green lights. When she matches the energy that he brings into the picture, then that's a green light. And that's his cue to think about the accelerator pedal. That's the excitement pedal, the escalation, if you will. Yeah. And when she's giving green lights, it is an invitation. It's like, this is working for me. This is feeling good. And the invitation to the masculine partner to take some initiative, to take action, to feel a confidence in that. We like that when that's accurately perceived. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if she's not matching the energy that he's putting in, that's what I call a yellow light. It's not a disaster. It's not it's not everything is wrong. It's an opportunity for him to show that he's going to show up even if she's not ready and feeling that in this moment, for whatever it is that's going on for her. And maybe it's just one of those things. Like, we don't know how many of those things we're dealing with. Maybe there is a lot of them, and maybe it is going to be a serious pile of things to unpack. And maybe he really is going to have to be patient for this to work out. On the other hand, maybe there's just one or two things that are really getting to her right now, and if we could get those out of the way, she would feel so much more supported than she did before, that she wouldn't be such a struggle to let some of the other things go, or to feel like, okay, he really is showing up and connecting with me. And so presence is really the biggest key, the single ingredient when it comes to this recipe. That's another analogy that I like, is you always hear people talking about if things aren't going the way they want in the bedroom, they want to spice things up. Yeah. But what I recommend is that actually most people should try simplifying things down to get the basic recipe, optimized before you try adding spice, right? So presence and connection is really your single ingredient that's at the foundation of this. Okay. And so your ability in particular, it's her too, but this is where the opportunity for men is to focus on, let me just be fully present with her and with what's happening right now, and like connect here. So when it comes to physical touch, the biggest opportunity in the phase one part here, where we're looking for her emotional safety and letting things get off of her mind, get her into her body. I call it upper body hugs, which sounds maybe a little bit redundant, but the point is anything that is upper body focused touch that brings you closer together. And that can be anything from a literal hug, like arms wrapping around, to holding hands, to squeezing, to pressing your head or your cheek or your face against the other person, anything that's like bringing you closer together. Specifically, that kind of touch is not sexually driven and like, staying above the waist, minus breasts don't count in this category. We this is later. Yeah. But upper body focus conveys those sentiments non-verbally as well as verbally. You can still say these things too, but like, I like you, I love you, I care about you, I enjoy you, I appreciate you. In this moment, just feeling you in my arms is wonderful. Like, I'm not so attached to to what else has to happen next. I'm enjoying and appreciating exactly what's happening right now. That kind of presence and connection is going to help her start to feel relaxed. And again, that he's not coming in with the agenda. Because, again, touch that has an agenda behind it feels completely different from touch that is an expression of enjoyment and appreciation. This ties back to the desire to please, right? So there is a tendency, again, one of those ways being like trying to reach down and genitally stimulate, but even when it comes to like holding somebody and trying to massage them at the same time, like, okay, where's the spot? How do I want to squeeze her shoulder right now? That analytical effort and attention towards trying to make her feel something feels completely different than if he were to just have his hand there and just think, oh my goodness, her skin and this curve and this beautiful woman who's in my arms. Like, it's completely different sensation. And we so much more want to feel enjoyed by our partner than we want to feel like a bunch of buttons that they're trying to push to turn us on.
Yeah.
So that's where the motivation needs to be coming from, is how can I show her with my touch how much I appreciate and enjoy exactly what's happening right now. And that is part of what's going to help her to feel like, okay, this is relaxing and safe, and gosh, he's so wonderful, and he just wants to be here with me. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, as opposed to the like, oh, here he comes again, he's just trying to get something from me.
If I can dig in a little bit, you've used the phrase presence a lot. And I think there's probably some people listening that are like, okay, like I know what presence is, but like, let's get more clear on that. And I think the example you just said is a good one, which brought me back to it, is that if I'm touching or massaging and thinking ahead, like what is the future outcome of this?
Right.
That takes me out of presence. But when I'm enjoying it myself, so like I just want to hear you talk about what are some things that a man does that for you personally you're like, oh, he's locked in, he's here, and maybe you're not analytically thinking that, but you're feeling that.
I describe it in a way that is taking what I've heard from many men as they're focused often almost entirely on trying to think about her pleasure. Like 100% of their attention is on what do I need to do to please her and to make her feel something.
Yeah.
And what I encourage is flip it around. I want to see about 75% of your attention on what you're feeling, what you're noticing, and even what you're wanting in that moment. And the other 25% is just noticing whether she's enjoying what you're doing as much as you are or not.
And this brings us back to your red light or green light, yellow light.
Right. So when you start to see kind of like what the progression, I do teach a sort of specific arc of escalation that I consider in the basic recipe, the like direct route that doesn't take any of those foreplay tracks that we talked about. Those, I consider those the detours, the scenic route, and in many cases the afterplay rather than the foreplay. So not that they don't have a role, but the order of operations is actually different than what a lot of people think. So again, the actually focusing on noticing, like tapping into your own body and your own, like the male drives and desires are very important in this equation as well. And like ignoring them and trying to say this is about her pleasure is not, it's counterproductive. It's understandable to want to put that first. And there are, it is important to make sure that she is enjoying what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But when you try to put that out in front and put your feelings, your sensations, your enjoyment on the back burner, it's counterproductive. So the 25% attention is noticing those things like the green lights and the yellow lights. Is she matching and responding to what you're doing? What I like to encourage in the progression of this starts ideally with cuddling. Now, I should say, when we're getting into kind of like private, intimate time together, because I also encourage people to keep up the upper body hugs and touches throughout all of your daily life.
Yeah.
Like what you want to set the tone that your touch is a communication of appreciation and enjoyment and connection, not the agenda part. You want that to be consistent. This is where, again, in daily life, you don't want to be sitting on opposite sides of the room. She has gravitated away because she's used to touch that has a very different signal than that. But if you can make that your foundation of touch in your life about just the presence, just the appreciation. I just want to have you close to me. I just want my arms around you. I'm like magnetized to you. And again, this is coming from his desire and his, like feeling into that, like looking at her and thinking like, wow, she's beautiful. She's amazing. I'm drawn to her. I want to communicate that, in the way that's coming from me and my, my feelings, and that's a big part of what she wants to feel is being, that you're drawn to her. We want to feel attractive and desirable, desired, wanted, virtually irresistible to the man who makes us feel comfortable and safe and relaxed and present and connected. So that's actually phase 2, is feeling the desire of the man who has helped us to come back into our body, out of our mind.
So we've built sanctuary, we built emotional safety and comfort.
Yep.
And now
it gets to the relational part where his desire, his arousal, his being turned on by her is actually kind of like part of the secret sauce to it. So, and again, phase 2 is not about physically stimulating her either. Uh-huh. However, it does have some physical components that are significant. I like to call phase 2 lips and hips, because instead of, again, it's not about finding, like using your hand to find the parts of her to push the buttons, right? It's what parts of you are just like aching to connect with her, right? Mm-hmm. So your lips connecting with her lips and your hips connecting with her hips are how your desire and your turn on is going to be non-verbally communicated to her. Once you have felt from her that she is giving you a steady stream of green lights, that she is feeling your presence and your safety and your connection, and you've I mentioned that like cuddling is my favorite way to encourage people to do this. So you like if you're lying, preferably in a bed where you have some amount of space, preferably not a king size bed. That's too much space. You need to be closer. You would like queen size is a much better size of bed than king size. And everybody wants the biggest, best thing, but you don't need that much space. You want to be closer together. Because you want to have that contact as much of the time as you can, that agenda-free, like, let's just be close to each other as much as possible, because that in itself is wonderful. And let's have that as often as we can. And when the right moments are there, that we're able to put all these other things out of the way, and like she's able to get into her body, and then he feels that because he's connecting with her and he's starting to get these green lights back where she's like, like starting to let out the sighs and the sounds, and she's squeezing him back with the same kind of pressure that he's squeezing her, and she's wrapping her arms or her legs around him in a similar way that he is. When she's matching the energy, then he's going to notice that, and it's it's very clear. It's not always very clear, but it can be very clear. And the better you get to notice it, the better you get to understand it, the more readily you start to pick up on what, am I receiving a reciprocal like match of this energy or not? If I am,
Can you dig into, because it's conceptual. Like, so if we were to dig into a guy he's married, he wants to have more connection and sex really in his marriage.
It's totally fine that we have that there as like, yes, that's a destination we want to get to. And always knowing that the only way to get to any destination is to keep your eyes on the road in front of you and work your way there. So it's totally cool that we know that he'd like to have more sex. So would she, most likely.
Right. Okay. So what I'm driving at then is, so I like this idea of matching energy. That feels like something tangible that you can intuit your way through. What would be, just to know the counter side of it, what are some yellow lights or red lights? So you're upper body hugging.
She's a limp rag doll. She turns her head away when you move closer to start to kiss. She squirms or makes some kind of like a different kind of like not happy noise, right?
Okay,
but it
so
could
it's
be anything,
obvious.
Right? Anything where she does not respond similarly in some manner.
And what does the guy do, or what would you recommend in this situation?
Right. Yeah, so yellow lights, you have either you can just slow down a little bit from wherever you are, because it could happen at any point. Even if things are going well, something might go, wrong. Like you stick your tongue in her ear and she's not into that, right? Like you might have had a whole bunch of green lights and all of a sudden she's like, ugh. And then you're like, oh, that's a yellow light. Okay, and then you don't panic. You don't slam your foot on the brakes. You're just like, oh, sorry. And then you go, and then you dial it back slightly to something that was working. Okay. That's one thing. If you have one of these situations, which again is far too common, where she's not bringing a lot of green lights in any situation because there's been a lot of buildup and baggage, that's where you end up needing to start to ask questions. And this, it's not only a buildup of things. It can be one-off in any situation. But if you're getting yellow lights, then she's not in her body, she's in her head about something. And so the way that you can actually build trust in the relationship and show her that you are really there for her is to investigate that and say, and you want as open-ended of questions as possible to try to figure it out. Because chances are, unless you've gotten really good at this, you probably don't know what is on her mind. So questions that are like, how are you feeling? Or is anything on your mind? Or Is there anything you need from me right now? Things that encourage her to be able to answer honestly without worrying about hurting your feelings about it. Like a bad check-in question that people ask sometimes is, does this feel good? Because
that implies if she says no,
if she says no, then yeah, she's not going to be as comfortable saying no most of the time, especially if it's like, well, it feels okay, but it doesn't feel great, but I guess good. Yeah, I suppose it feels good. You don't want, so you don't want to ask questions that are going to lead her to want to answer a certain thing. You want to ask questions that just leave an open door to her just being honest with whatever is, on your mind. Because she could say anything. She could say, my hip has really been just like really bugging me tonight, and I think I need to like change positions, or you've got your elbow on my hair and I just need you to lift that up a little bit for me, or I can't stop thinking about the kids thing, or whatever it is. This is the state that she's in at this moment, and if you're gonna show up as a partner, then you can't skip this. If it's bothering her, it's not going to go away like on its own either. But it could be that all she needs is for you to hear something. Sometimes it's that simple. Like she just needs to get something off of her chest, and then like that's all it is. You don't know, again, really, until you're asking this sort of thing.
Makes me think of the importance of acknowledging like kids' feelings instead of saying, "Oh, you're okay." Like, this is something that's come up in parenting a lot. It's like a kid gets hurt and it's like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And it's so much better to just be like, oh man, that looks like it hurt. And that simple acknowledgement can enough to be like,
validation.
It did hurt. And so sounds like the same could be true with this situation.
It can be. It's, again, like there's so many things that it could be that's getting in the way. You really don't typically know unless you investigate. Like, it's your job at that point if you if you can tell something is getting in the way, because again, she would rather be giving you green lights. She would rather everything felt great right now. If she's your partner, she's in love with you or has been in love with you, she chose to be with you, she's still there with you at that point, and like she would rather be in a state where this could be just a flood of steady stream of green lights. And so again, she's not happy with the situation if it's coming out yellow. And hopefully, ideally, again, if you can cultivate a lifestyle where that these are things that are going to make it more challenging for her, and say things like people do date nights, right? Like where you plan and schedule time where you make sure that all the distractions and things are out of the way. You're taking a big variable out of the equation there so that you can have that off the plate, right? If you work together to ensure that your bodies are physically healthy and comfortable more of the time, then that's going to be something less likely to be getting in the way. If you work on your communication and your relationship where you improve your ability to take responsibility for your needs and your feelings, and to ask for what you want and what you enjoy, and create a really supportive, loving relationship, you're going to have fewer of those things getting in the way. So all of these things, they add up based on how you have, coordinated and cultivated your life together. So some people have done, a good job of setting themselves up for success, and some people have been doing all the wrong things for a long time and have a harder job to come back to it. But you get the choice if you've especially if you've been together for years or decades. Is this what I want to invest in, bringing it back to the state that I want, or do I feel like this is just unfixable? Again, recognizing that aspect that she's not happy with it either, that sometimes, as you brought it up earlier, is enough to maybe shift their mindset to think, okay, it's not just her, like it's me, what can I do? But I mean, we have a lot of choices.
Yeah. So we got phase 1, we started on phase 2, and right now we're kind of assuming this is like let's call it like a middle of the road. Like it's not a horrific mess where they need like serious counseling. Mm-hmm. We got some green lights. We navigated a yellow.
Yeah.
Now, how do we continue?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, so phase one, again, she's feeling emotionally safe and connected. Whatever things are going on, they've been able to be set aside for the moment. They're not so pressing, not so problematic. So she's feeling in her body. He's communicating with all that upper body, ooey gooey affection. And then her green lights are coming through solidly. And he starts to realize, like, okay, yeah, she's feeling good. I'm going to let this latent desire I have start to come out. So this is where he starts to, and we've somewhat started on it, but like his lips, his hips start to send the signals like, not only do I like and love and appreciate you and care about you and enjoy being here with you, I also want you right now.
Yeah.
And that is very juicy to feel when we're in our body and ready to feel that. That is really, really nice. And and again, you're looking for her signals that she's matching you, and you're also looking to try to match her and keep the pace very similar, and just little by little, tap the accelerator like 5-mile-an-hour increments at a time, as long as you keep getting green lights from her. And again, green light is an invitation to gently, carefully, incrementally accelerate. If she's giving you a ton of green lights and you don't try to accelerate things, she's going to get confused. She's going to start wondering, like, is something wrong?
Does he not want me?
Does he not want me? Like, is he not that interested in me? She wants to feel your desire. I think in the Jeffrey Miller Tucker Max book, Mate, Become the Man Women Want, there's a passage in there about how the lust coming from the guy who has all the qualities that she wants is like the hottest thing ever. And they're totally on point with that. And so he's starting to bring in the lips and hips expression of, these are the parts of my body that want to connect with you. Again, hands, their job is to keep holding her close and continuing that like emotional reassurance and connection. The like, yes, I'm here with you completely. These parts of my body are just wanting to connect with you, and all of me is wanting to connect with you in this space. And so phase 3 is where physical stimulation finally starts to be in the picture for her. And there's some interesting things about female anatomy in this, that although it's not obvious externally the same way that men's erectile tissue is, women have a lot of it as well, like all around the surface, inside, outside. We have a lot of tissue that does respond and get engorged with blood when there's physical stimulation there. And so, again, we're not that receptive to it unless we're like into the phase 1, into phase 2. But that part of phase 3 really can come in fairly quickly if the green lights were really solid.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking again that, okay, now I need to reach down with my hand and start rubbing her, a leg, a thigh, a hip, like the center of the body, keeping your whole body connected reciprocally with hers, feeling that kind of sensation, like a thigh that's a very broad, like encompassing contact. It's very different from like an isolated small sensation of like a hand or something.
It requires you to even kind of disconnect.
Exactly. Yes. So if you try to reach your hand in, you're actually pushing your bodies apart.
Right.
So instead, if you can just shift a little bit so that one of your legs goes in between hers and starts to create a nice, firm, solid contact, and little by little, as it makes sense with the rest of your movements, some kind of like gentle massaging movement there. That's what's actually going to start to bring the blood flow for her and make it so that her sensation and her pleasure potential is going to go up and the juices are going to start to flow. They probably started flowing by phase 2 a little bit once she started feeling that desire directed at her in the context of safety and presence. But they're going to definitely be encouraged by that contact. And so, when we were talking about all the other types of foreplay earlier, again, this idea usually seems to be, I need to get my hands and my mouth down there to do something.
Right. Yeah.
But that's so much disconnection in a way, like taking your body, your physicality, and your presence away, as opposed to keeping it all in connection and maintaining and working through that stimulation with the maximum amount of body contact possible. So your thigh is a fantastic tool for connecting with her in those parts of the body. And then now let's say, again, my favorite example, you're laying together on the bed as this is happening. In phase 1, you might be laying on your backs, or maybe she's kind of like turned towards you. Phase 2, you're really kind of moving in a more face-to-face, because you're starting to want to bring your lips towards her lips and your hips in connection with hers. As you're getting into phase 3, this also coincides with the using the accelerator pedal to keep escalating the encounter. And now, again, this is what I consider actually the most direct route. Like, if everything is going well, not taking all the detours, but actually taking this full body connection and stimulation that you're working on here, and bringing her up to like a maximum state of arousal. This can happen without clothes coming off at all.
Sure.
She can get completely turned on, and the colloquial term, maybe like dry humping, basically, is the kind of like, if that is happening and she is like making all kinds of noises and grabbing and pulling like on you and grinding against you, that's a very good sign. At that point,
green lights.
Those are very green lights, very, very green. If you at that point disconnect from her and move your body away, bring your face down to her crotch, and all of a sudden she's getting this small little isolated sensation, and your whole, like, where did you go? Her arousal level can go way down from that. So I strongly encourage, use that full body connection as your primary foreplay tool. And when she's grinding against you and making all kinds of noises, don't do anything else other than what you need to do to get the clothing out of the way. So don't take any more detours. Go at that point, her body is most primed to get the most pleasure, enjoyment, and satisfaction out of the actual intercourse that it ever will be.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then we have a key thing. This is another thing where porn really, really puts people on the wrong path here.
Yeah, I bet.
Is that continuous massaging contact that we were talking about, that's stimulating her, bringing the blood flow. Actually, I forgot to mention this part, that I only learned this earlier this year. The clitoris is not just the little nub that you feel at the top. It's actually got this kind of horseshoe shape, these legs that extend down the whole sides.
Yeah.
So, it seemed a little obvious when I saw it in an anatomy depiction, but thinking no wonder why. What most people tend to do when it comes to intercourse, it's exactly what you see in porn, because this is what looks good on camera, is you have these long thrusts in and out where there's this huge breaking of contact with every movement that happens. And I personally suspect that this has something to do with the statistics that say so many women can't orgasm from penetration. Because what everybody's doing is breaking the body contact with every single movement that they do. And they think that what they're trying to do to ramp up the stimulation is go harder and faster. And instead I coach people, no, I actually want to see you barely move at all. Bring things into full contact and maintain that contact. And what you're going to do is an extremely subtle grinding, rocking, massaging motion, because the majority of what she needs to stimulate orgasm is actually the external contact. And the internal is just something that like, it takes that up a notch to another level. It doesn't, I mean, the most sensitive internal parts are not very far from the entrance. And like, it doesn't take a lot of movement or motion to stimulate those areas. And if you're giving her this like complete full body presence experience where she feels so connected to you and you're stimulating all of the external parts continuously in this way, and then she gets to feel you inside on top of that, and that brings like the full picture there. And so I think if more people tried that, there'd be a lot more women orgasming from intercourse, and a lot faster.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like a big takeaway right there, is to just
move less. Again, porn makes you think that that's what everybody wants, and she's pretending that's what's getting her off. And not that it never will. Again, like, sure, okay.
Yeah, when does it? Because, like, I mean, just from personal experience, there are times where that works, and it's great. So it's just like not jumping straight to that. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, just have that as another. That's where. I would put that in the spice category, right? Okay. Basic recipe is the minimum amount of like we're going from what it takes to get her turned on with like phase 1, 2, 3 in as little steps in time as possible, and everything else is an expansion and is the scenic routes above and beyond that. Okay. So know this like simple, straightforward path. Show her that you've got that down. And then like from there, that the most important goal in the driving analogy is not whether you get to the destination. It's does she want to keep getting back in the car with you over and over again, right? Mm-hmm. So show her like that you're a good, controlled driver. You accurately read the signs on the road. You respond appropriately, gentle taps on the gas or the brake pedal as needed. You know, if you get out of sync with her pace and your pace, you slow down and you wait to find like, okay, this is where she's at. All right, now we're only getting like 5 mile an hour little taps at a time that we're going to go up from here and see if she maintains that pace. If her green lights keep coming, then I keep moving us forward. And this is, you show her that, and then, you know, it doesn't matter if who orgasms this time or whatever, like you're going to have all the chances to try again. That, you know, the whole journey over the destination cliche, but yeah.
Well, and like you said, like making sure that she wants to get back in the car with you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I can't help but think about, it's like a meme of when men are driving with their wives and they get scared, like that he's following too closely. Right. And I can't help but see a bit of a correlation here. Like I wonder if that guy sometimes struggles to read green lights and yellow lights in the bedroom. Because like if you're attuned to her, you can like sense like, oh yeah, like, because my wife and I, we've gone through this a lot. It used to be more of an issue where like she'd always be like kind of freaking out with the driving. Finally, it hit me one time. I was like, I could just drive slower. Like I could, it would be okay. But anyways, I don't mean to.
No, it's a good point.
So we've gotten through all the 3 phases. Like, not that the destination is the only goal. Like, we do want our partner to get back in the car with us. Yep. That's key. Now we get into like, this is great. Mm-hmm. Now there's a whole new suite of problems. Like the guy, he does need for her to like, well, he wants her to be pleasured. Mm-hmm. The only metric that is commonly referred to as orgasm.
Right. Yeah.
And so if she's not achieving that, then he feels like he's not succeeding. Mm-hmm. Let's just unpack that one a bit more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That is the quintessential only metric that people can understand to measure by. But, and, you know, as someone who knows my body very well, I can tell you, I can instruct someone on the techniques to use to get me to have an orgasm without really having been turned on, and that does not mean I was having a good time. It's not the same thing. So it's honestly, it's more of an achievement to get her turned on and aroused and that she is desiring you than to actually produce the orgasm. I think of it
mechanically make it happen.
Yeah, like I think of it as, well, sometimes I say it's like the icing on the cake. Like if you didn't bake a good cake, it doesn't. I don't want a bowl full of icing.
Pure frosting's gross.
That's not. that doesn't make it better. But if you have a really good cake, it doesn't always need icing. You still want more cake.
Yeah, if the cake is just bomb, like perfect moisture level and all that. Okay.
It's like that's the like the times when it like maybe leaves you wanting more, but also I had in my, a lot of many things I've learned have come from my own personal life. And one of the best periods of life where I really got to understand my body best and have just the most consistently enjoyable sex, neither of us was attached to the orgasms. And it was 50-50, I would say, in a given encounter that each of us would. And that was both of us like really knowing our bodies very well, knowing each other very well, knowing like what, excites and turns the other on. I would absolutely take that kind of an experience over a kind of experience where I orgasm every time, but it's like, it's stressful. It's not relaxed. He's fixated on that. We're not being present with one another. I remember a different scenario in which the partner seemed to have figured out exactly the method, knew exactly the recipe. Yeah. And so that's exactly what he would do every single time. And yes, it might make me orgasm, but there was no flavor, no variety, and I didn't feel like there was an emotional or connected aspect. It just felt like he was like stroking his own ego to prove he could do it. And so I 100% did not like prefer that over a time where maybe I orgasmed half as much, but it was so relaxed and so easy, and we'd just be like, "Are you getting there?"
Because there wasn't pressure on you?
No pressure.
And that's what it was that you
liked.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The pressure. Because, again, that's the thing. Like, the guy in his mind, he's like, I must please her. And she's like, okay, I have to be pleased. Like,
which takes her out of her body.
She's not, it's not, so it's very, again, counterproductive. So the trick is, again, it's the presence of it. It's like, you know what? It doesn't matter if we get there. If we pay close attention, though, to what's happening, the odds go way up.
Right.
So you have to let the attachment to it go. That, like, you know what? I'm going to focus on what's happening right now. I'm going to focus on how she's feeling. I'm going to read the signal she's giving me. I'm going to tune into my body and what I want to feel. And I'm going to follow that as a guide while noticing, is this still working for her? Yes. Good. Is this not working for her? Okay, hold on. And and we're just going to keep the eyes on the road. We're going to stick with what's happening right here, right now. And again, the odds of getting to the destination go up rather than if all you think about is the destination. Yeah,
that tracks. I can see what you mean. Because I've always just had this exact conversation. Like, no, I didn't, but it was great. And I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah, right.
It's like you can't believe that.
Yeah, it's like hard to accept.
No, it's a question, would I do it again? Like, yes, I would do that again.
Getting back in the car.
Yeah.
All right. Another thing that can happen, and this is more on the guy's side of things, is premature ejaculation.
Okay.
Let's say a coaching client, this is something that comes up for him for whatever reason. Maybe he blames it on the infrequency of intercourse or whatever the case may be. What are the ways that a guy should think about that?
Okay. Yeah, so there can be a couple of different causes there. So it can be something that's like just a physical factor, but more of the time it's something about overstimulation that's mentally, it can, sometimes it's out of novelty if this is a new experience and he's just like so excited, so, overwhelmed by something that can be a reason. It can also be scarcity because of, you mentioned like infrequency. I've seen that before. Definitely that, it's like there's the least contact or possibility or opportunity, because it's such a rarity. It's like, oh my goodness, this is happening. And like, and there's so much riding on this one instance, and it just completely like, the mental side of things can totally overrun or override what's happening. So it can be, something like that, and or it could be the anxiety if he's like worried about the performance parts. That can be a piece too. So if it's the physical aspect, you have different strategies that you can do there, and anything from like just being very conscious and deliberate and slow with your movements, slowing things down. Some people do the like think about something else. Ideally, we don't really want to encourage that.
Right.
You can, potentially use things like desensitizing creams or condoms. Of course, that's going to sometimes, depending on if it's inside a condom, it hopefully won't affect the partner, but if it's a cream, it might.
Oh, it could desensitize
her. Yeah.
Okay.
But also another thing to think about is like, just because he comes once doesn't necessarily mean that the encounter has to end. Right. I have personal experience with this too. I had a partner for many years who what we called round one was somewhere in the ballpark of like 90 seconds. And on the one hand, I, knowing my body very well, got pretty good at figuring out how to utilize that amount of time.
Sure.
But that didn't always work. So what I always hoped for and looked forward to was round two. Because round two almost always lasts a lot longer than round one.
Yeah.
So one thing would just be to like, don't pin it all on round one, and like realize that things don't have to be done and over with. Again, if she wants to get back in the car with you, like that's the theme here. Like it doesn't, it's not just this one chance and it's over and done with. Like, okay, sure, it would be nice if every single experience got to be the ideal. But if you understand your body that like, okay, well, this is probably going to go quick the first time, but don't worry, we've got 2 hours.
Right.
So, we've planning a life that like cultivates better opportunities. Like if you know that about yourself. And again, because again, part of the problem, too, if it's the scarcity aspect, is because she's become averse to touch and intimacy. And so the same guy probably needs to go back through the same process and try to, okay, how do I make sure that she actually wants me to be touching her all the time? Because then I wouldn't be dealing with this scarcity problem. She'd be, wanting to interact with me more often. And so a lot of that is the same strategy. The novelty, you can't necessarily do anything about that, but hopefully just the person that you're with is an understanding person, and you just have it like, wow, that was really great. Like, you get like about 20 more minutes, like I should be good again.
Yeah.
I like to tell people, like, don't fight it. When your body is like, if that's what's going to happen, enjoy it for what it is. And because if you're stressing about it, you're making everything harder, and you're taking away
She's likely picking up on that.
Right.
Stress.
So this is like letting go of the attachment to what's the destination we got to, and just focus on where we are, being present with this, and like, hopefully, we haven't only given ourselves a 10 or 20 minute block of time. No, sure, quickies are also can be a great thing, but again, if you know yourself, if you know this is a tendency, then you can take that into consideration, and that can be another conversation that you could have with a partner, like outside of the moment.
Yeah, outside of it, like having.
Yeah.
That actually brings up. So there's at least 2 things I want to make sure, and then we got like a really special thing coming up. So communication. About sex in general can just be, I even struggle to talk about it. Like, it's hard to talk about it outside of the actual event. What are strategies that can help with that to make it more natural?
I mean, that's a good question. So for me personally, I have just tried to normalize it as something in my life. Like I think that's a common theme, just like normalization for me. That this is, it's not something that only happens on like special occasions under special circumstances. This kind of goes back to the evolutionary biology and psychology of it. Like we're programmed to want these things, we're programmed to feel these things. Let's structure our lives in a way that's conducive to this and encourages it and doesn't treat it like something that is dirty. Or I hate dirty talk that like says negative things about people.
Yeah.
I want to hear things that again bring those feelings of closeness and presence and comfort and connection. And like this is a wonderful, like sweet thing that we can enjoy together. Sometimes it's more intense and rambunctious than other times, but it's a we chose this partnership because this is the container that we want to exercise and express this part of ourselves in. So it is going to be very difficult if you only address the subject of sex while it's happening. So I think recognizing that maybe would be a first step. Like that's not gonna make it better. Like if you just try to solve it in the moment, that's not gonna work. So I would say, for me, I really like to spend a lot of time like after the fact as well. So like you can, even if you're not necessarily having a completely outside conversation, if you do allow yourselves some like downtime to maybe reflect and debrief a little bit, like I really liked it when you did blah 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 or something. Like, so on the one hand you could just try to expand the moment to, after you've come to some, whatever your sense of completion is, which does not have to be after either or both people orgasm.
Right.
You've come to some sense of conclusion, and then you can just share some reflections. You're still in the context, perhaps, if you have that time, if you've, made that time for yourselves. But, you can have a conversation about that like a conversation about anything else. Like, hey, there's something that's been on my mind. I really want to run it by you. Or like, I've really been thinking about how we could, just work on our intimate lives. Like, could we have a conversation about that sometime? I mean, you remember that this is your ally, that you've, your partner that you've chosen to explore and experiment with these things with, and, to tap into what you want and what you need and what you feel. Like, your feelings are a valid indicator of when things are or are not going right. And one of the things that we have to do in relationships is take responsibility for our feelings and needs. And if you're sensing, either if you're sensing dissatisfaction in something, or if you're sensing an opportunity and a desire and an excitement around something, your partner is typically not going to be reading your mind about whatever is going on. And when you're bringing up your authentic feelings, needs, wants, desires, and sharing those, you're giving a gift to them in the relationship to be able to understand more about you and to recognize what's going on and to be able to respond ideally in a positive way. Like, I hear you about the importance of this, and like, yes, I love you, and I also want you to be happy, and I want to, work with you on these things. And so it's, making requests of our partner is when we conscientiously do that, it can be a real gift. Like, we don't want to be framing things negatively and blamefully and saying like, oh, I hate this thing, or I hate it when you do this, or why don't we more this? Or it's really hard for somebody to feel like your ally and want to be there to, collaborate and help you when things come out as complaints and criticisms. And now, not that you shouldn't ever call attention to behaviors that you want to have stopped. Like, that's still something that you need to do. But the most, when you can frame things in the most positive way possible, as to, here's what I feel, your own personal experience. Here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm wanting, hoping for. Here's what I'm missing. Here's what I'm struggling with. Like, this is me. This is not you. This is my experience. I want to share that with you because I believe that as my partner, you want to see and know me, and that you are interested. This is giving a lot of benefit of the doubt to the other person, that they care about you and that they want to be invested and enlist in the same things that you do. And here's what's going on for me, and here's my ideas, here's my thoughts, here's my proposal. Like, what do you think about this? Or would you be open to this? Or would you be willing to this? Or like, could we, even if it's could we have a conversation where we kind of talk about the things that we like and don't like? Or it could be, I know we're having a really hard time talking about these things. What would you think about maybe getting a third party, like having a sex therapist that we could try to get some thoughts out there and like bounce ideas where they could maybe give us some advice, because we don't seem to be able to like fully articulate what we're trying to ask for. So I think that's really the taking, seeing it as like your responsibility. Like, in order to have like a healthy, fulfilling relationship long term, and to both be excited about it, it's important that both people's needs get met and addressed. Yeah. And we really have to do that for ourselves. We can obviously enlist the other person in, sharing with them what we believe is going to help to meet our needs, and getting their agreement and participation in doing that. But ultimately, it's our individual responsibility to be aware of those things and to bring them up, and to do so in a way that makes it easy for them, or as easy as possible, for them to want to give us a positive response, and, continue, again, to be friends and allies and collaborators in this effort to have a healthy, like, robust, fulfilling life together. Mm-hmm. So just looking at it that way.
Right. And then now to close up the 3 phases, use this word afterplay.
Okay.
And it feels to me like that's a lot about really trying to lock in her wanting to get back in the car with you.
It can be. So I'm guessing when you're saying that maybe you're talking about that like drawn out, more like cuddling time or something, the like not rushing out of it.
Exactly.
Which
like,
is,
how do you like really bring a nice completion to this experience?
Well, so that isn't exactly what I meant by afterplay.
Yeah, but you tell me what you mean.
Right. I do want to say, like, that's something that I find really nice to do when there's time and opportunity. Yeah. It's lovely. It's lovely to just like bask in the experience for a while. Yeah. I like to, even if, say, there was intercourse and one or both people orgasmed, I don't like to separate right away if possible. Like, totally. Just hang out there, just, again, be present with it. Like, just feel everything, notice everything. It's easier to let go of the agenda around the destination if you're really enjoying what's happening, if you're really noticing and you're really just feeling it and just, soaking it all in. Yeah. Right? So that just keeps going, for some amount of time. And now what I do find then is that we bask in that for a little while, 5, 10, 20 minutes, some amount of time. It's totally depending on the situation. And then if we still have time, or maybe one of us didn't orgasm, or we're just, hanging out there, one of us kind of spontaneously gets inspired again, we don't have to stop. Yeah. So it's like those kind of times where it's like, we did that, but I didn't do this to you yet. I kind of want to do that. And then you just like, it's more like continuing. Yeah. Just going back to this idea that so many women report not orgasming during intercourse. And I feel like it's a very missed opportunity so much of the time, but that like, if she does get to experience that, I know for me, like my body just relaxes and all, I'm it's even easier to like let go of things and just feel like, oh yeah, now if he went and did all those other things to my body, that would be fun, because it wouldn't be taking away from the direct root of that like complete connection that I just wanted and that I just had. Now, like I actually got my favorite thing, and all those other things can be just more play and lighthearted about it too. And so, yeah, so I think of a lot of those items like oral sex, I tend to think of that as something I'll enjoy more if I already had intercourse, even whether or not I come, actually, because if I do, great, that energy has been like, it has done its job. But if it hasn't, like for whatever reason, maybe he came sooner, and so like I didn't yet, I'm not stressed about it. But like if now if he wants to go down on me, I'm actually more interested, because I'm like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about using up my arousal energy on this when I still had the potential of getting it through the intercourse. So now, sure, I'll take plan B. Why not?
Sure.
But I actually physically and mentally resist enjoying oral sex too much if we haven't already had intercourse, because like I don't want to expend all that energy I've built up in something that's less of a complete connection.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's very different when the order of operations is changed.
Yeah.
So that's more when I say it. The things that are considered in the foreplay bucket, I put them more in the afterplay. Like or again, scenic route. Like if you, as the guy, again, you're in the driver's seat, you can choose. If you know the differences in these things, you can choose. Do I want to take the direct route today, or do I want to take the scenic route? Mm-hmm. If you understand what you're doing and are, reading her responses and things correctly, it's kind of fun for you to be in charge in making those decisions.
Yeah.
And you don't always have to do the same thing. And if you have demonstrated to her that you're a really good driver and you get her signals, then that's part of what allows her to just relax. And like, again, she wants you to take her on a sensual journey. It doesn't have to be the same every time. And a lot of it can be motivated by what you feel like doing at this moment. Yeah. And again, if you know that if you take that detour, she might actually have slowed down, and you might have to pick her up at a slower pace to get her back up there again, instead of thinking that the detour is the direct route. Is just knowing the effect that's going to have. You can make the decision like, well, I really want to taste her right now, so I guess we're just going to have to take that detour and come back here and, bring it back to that like full body connection that I know she wants even more than that. That reminds me of something that somebody just told me the other day, that they said women complain that men don't go down on them enough. And when I heard that, I thought, again, it's because they probably, what she's really saying is men don't get me turned on enough before they try to have sex with me. And she's stuck in that same mindset that the progression of foreplay that people are accustomed to involves oral sex, and she feels like that's the way that she's supposed to get turned on. She is probably not aware of how she could get even more turned on even more easily, and that's just her go-to because these are not things that people typically know. Yeah. What she meant is she's not turned on enough by the time they try to have sex with her.
Interesting, yeah. Okay, so we have explored these three phases. So presumably a guy listening has more strategy to get more connection and ultimately intercourse back in his partnership with his woman. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about like your expertise in the subject. You're like when I introed you today, you're a sex and intimacy coach. Mm-hmm. Thinking of how to set you up for this. So, well, first of all, what led you to landing on that as, a career to pursue? and then I'm going to let you meander and find the path that you want to take.
Yeah, so I have come to this through a lifetime of a long, winding road of exploration, and certainly had no idea where it was headed. But my background, I was the quintessential nerd as a kid.
Okay.
One of my reasons for empathizing with many men in the situations they are is because I had a terrible time getting the attention of anyone and getting a date. I did not have a boyfriend until college, despite I would have very much wished to have it. But yeah, I was a nerd, so I totally experienced rejection and challenges around being able to put myself out there and attract partners that I wanted and have success. So I had that experience as a kid, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was smart, nerdy kid, graduated in the top of my class, and the thing to do was go to college, but I didn't know why or what for.
Yeah.
I took the first full ride scholarship that was offered my way, which was physics. Right? One semester and a C in intro physics, because I just didn't care about physics, I decided that was not going to be the thing. So I just studied what seemed interesting. I had a decent home life, but kind of hands-off parenting style, so nobody pushed me to any particular direction. It was left very much open to whatever possibilities. What I wanted to do was completely open-ended. So I wasn't corralled into any particular, path or anything. I ended up with a bachelor's degree in classics and a master's degree in art history because I was, those were topics that were interesting. So I just studied what was interesting. And that led me to Boston. I was working for a while, had internships at the Museum of Fine Arts. But during that time, around those years in particular, I started to notice that people's health around me was really deteriorating. And it started to make me think about what was more important in life at that point. Cataloging ancient Nubian artifacts in the basement of the museum, it's interesting, it's okay, but someone should probably do it. But, I had a partner for several years whose health was really going down the toilet, and I knew that lifestyle factors were at play, and I was thinking that, people are suffering in the world and struggling, and there's more to this. People need something else. And so this was the first time I started to feel like a drive to okay, I need to do something in the world. I was 25. And so I I finished the art history degree and I switched over to massage therapy because that was a way to get into the health and wellness world and a very hands-on experiential learning environment, and also a quick turnaround because I was already 7 years into very expensive higher education at that point. No more full ride scholarship after transfer after transfer. So I was looking for how can I turn this into a career fast? And yeah, doctor was not going to do it. But also knowing that conventional medicine and paths didn't seem to be solving all the problems for people either. So I wanted to start looking at it from different angles and really just studying things. So I spent 7 years full-time doing massage therapy and really at that point dove into nutrition and fitness and biomechanics and started studying how people's bodies were deteriorating over time. What were the patterns in that? I'm always looking for the patterns in things, right? And that led me down paths and conclusions like that wearing footwear prevents us from feeling our interaction with the ground, and that has a contributing factors to why posture deteriorates over time and why we get arthritis and spinal issues and things like that. Because going back to evolutionary biology, our bodies and brains are programmed to expect certain things from the environment, including we didn't have things on our feet until the last like 30,000 years, which is a very small amount of time.
Probably even far less than that,
On a consistent basis. Yeah, right. So along that path, the evolutionary lens was something that just kept coming out over and over. And that had been a theme for me ever since I walked away from religion as a teenager too, feeling that that what I was seeing when I was younger did not live up to its promise of showing people like good guidance for how to live a healthy, fulfilling life and be kind to one another. So I had this sense for a long time. I had to find the answers somewhere else, and that's that. The evolutionary lens over and over and over kept having so many more answers for everything. So now over the course of that time, starting from college, I did manage to put myself out there and get into relationships. So I have now a little over 20 years of almost continuous relationship history over a number of long-term relationships. And of course, in my life, like using that as the exploration and testing ground to continually try to get better and better at all of these things. Of course, I made my share of mistakes and things early on, and always doing my best to try to learn and get better. So I did go from that, inexperience to having some success. But then in the mid 2010s, like 2014, 15, at the end of one relationship, something had kind of happened over the previous few years where I sort of lost touch with my sense of femininity. And it ties in with the massage therapy career, because the existence of that profession and the regulation and licensing and training and things around it originated in like the 70s, specifically to distinguish it from anything that could be remotely seen as prostitution. And so there's a lot of work that's been done around that industry to legitimize and desexualize everything about it. And that while that's perfectly valid in, settings like I worked in a physical therapy clinic, and, you have sports injuries and things that are like, absolutely, that's what you need then and there. But it also, in a way, doesn't treat people as really the holistic individuals that they are. There's a premise that what they're doing is very holistic, but there's also this thing that we can't ever talk about or understand. In massage therapy is like, there's this box in the middle of the table that we can't touch, and we can't talk about it. We can't have any conversations that would like relate to anything like. So it's like there was something odd about that. And in the process of becoming a massage therapist, the very first day of school, for example, they said fingernails are no longer part of your life, right? That was the first thing, which I have a personal story with how I like overcame terrible nail biting. It was one of the many things that made me not very attractive when I was a kid. But so I had really overcome that, and giving that up was kind of a big deal. But then everything else too, like you can't have your hair dangling and like on people on the table. You can't have jewelry, or you can't have things that are going to be interfering.
Rings.
So right. So little by little, every sort of external manifestation of femininity started to go away. I started cutting my hair really short. I wasn't wearing any kind of makeup, nothing decorative or ornamental. Clothing was like as completely plain and modest and nondescript as possible. So again, about 2014, 2015, I'm trying to get back out into the dating world again. And all of a sudden, I can't get a date for the life of me again. And I'm thinking, I thought I got past this. Like, all right, what happened here? Okay. And so at some point, I kind of look in the mirror and I think, well, I kind of look like a boy. So I think that is not helping me. And that was kind of the moment where I thought, all right, I need to get back into this, like thinking about femininity and masculinity and how I express myself and how I attract a partner, how I thought I was getting pretty good at keeping a partner. But I kept I kept feeling I was outgrowing the relationships, but attracting a partner was a real mystery at that point. Even in the, so I started thinking, okay, I've got to work my way back to this somehow. And then kind of in the midst of that journey and a variety of other things, I was at home for Thanksgiving in 2016, and I opened an email from some finance guru, and there was an article that popped up that I clicked on, and it said the women who are the best negotiators in the country, or it's like a finance thing. Well, what it was referencing was the women who worked in the legal brothel system out in the state of Nevada, and which I, on some level, knew that existed, but I didn't know any of the details or anything about it. But I read the article, and a few things popped out at me at first. One was just something I'd never, knew anything about.
Yeah.
Two, they were trying to make this big point about how much money they make. And they were like, yeah, they make $500,000 a year. And I was like, oh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then a bunch of other things started popping into my mind about it. I was like, I always admired the courtesan, the art history, right? The Venetian courtesans and all the
Japanese history.
Right. And so, and all the artists would hire prostitutes as the models, right? Because that's how you that's who you have to, a proper woman is not going to have herself painted naked, right? So you
wow, yeah.
But it was also a very big part of Venetian Renaissance culture, and then there's pop culture things. Did you ever watch the Firefly series?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So Inara, right, the companion, right?
What was was it courtesan, or was that
she's registered companion, I think is the term that she used, right? So there were there's a Dangerous Beauty is a movie about a Venetian courtesan. There's Memoirs of a Geisha. There's all these things. And, and again, I'd always had this very sex positive mindset. When I was younger, I advocated for decriminalization around it because I thought, why is this an illegal thing between consenting adults? And, and more thoughts started coming into my head about this. I was like, that's interesting. They're putting money on the line for how attractive and seductive they can be. That's an interesting way to learn
how to make myself
about, right. I was like, imagine if that was my job, was to learn how to become more attractive, and and what about, something tells me I'd be good at it. And
what a bold, belief to have about it.
Yeah, and then there was all these other things. It was I was studying some Stoic stuff at the time. There was there's Cato that says only be ashamed of that which is truly shameful. And, where he wears the wrong color robes so that people will make fun of him, and he builds resilience around that. And then Seneca has the thing where he's every so often, put yourself in the worst case scenario so that you can see how bad it really is and not be so afraid of that thing happening to you. He'll wear rags and eat the worst food and pretend to be impoverished and, build resilience again to thinking, look, I survived it. Why am I terrified of that happening? So then I thought isn't supposed to be the worst case scenario is I'm reduced to selling my body for money, and maybe it's not as bad as they say. What if, And if I was going to advocate for decriminalization, what better than have firsthand experience to say in fact, I checked it out and this is what I learned.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't fully know, but what became clear, because I decided this is what I have to do. Pretty much overnight. It was 4 days before I sent in the application. I was like, this is clearly the thing that is going to teach me the next.
Utterly drawn and compelled to.
It was just this. Yeah, all those things I listed, and there's a bunch of other things that all together I was like, this is the next step. It was how, I'm in a prime of my life. I'm not tied down with kids or family or husband or anything like that. I'll never have a better time to consider it. I am not interested in allowing other people's stigma and opinions to dictate what I can and can't do with my life. It's a side of life that's so far removed from everything else I've ever experienced, like to get to see and understand, like, you know, a side of things that was so different. Yeah. And just, you know, on and on to the point, like I said, within a few days, I just decided this is it. This is what I have to do next. Uh-huh. So what ended up happening, I couldn't have imagined how significant it would be in terms of learning more about the ways in which people are suffering and the, you know, dissatisfaction and pain in people's lives and how they go about trying to solve it. So that's the biggest way in which it became an educational endeavor to really understanding. You know, there's this enormous industry, like unfathomably huge industry around this stuff. The legal Nevada part is just a teeny tiny snippet of it. Even 99% of what happens in Nevada is not within the legal parameters. Really? Yes, really. Like it is so, it's so limited. Like you have to, there's a set number of licenses in the state. They don't make more of them. So there are only for licenses for establishments, because it can only be conducted within a licensed establishment. So the brothels out there, or the ranches, they call them. Uh-huh. There are, I don't know, a dozen, give or take, maybe a couple dozen, somewhere in there. And they have to be, there's a state regulation around the health codes, but then there's county level regulation around where they can be, and they can only be in counties with a low enough population, meaning that like the big cities, they're not in the big cities, like Vegas and Reno. The closest one, there's one outside of Reno that's in Sparks that's like 20 minutes away from the big city, but the ones near Vegas are like an hour and a half away. So there's these handful of legal establishments located far enough outside of the cities. To work there, you have to, it has to be in one of these places. You have to go to the sheriff to get a work card. They do a background check on you. You have to see the doctor every week for the health checkups. I think I'm forgetting something else, but there's like a whole bunch of steps required. And so,
how many legal, women, like if there's only 12 places roughly,
each place can probably only, at any given time, the larger ones that I was involved in could maybe house like 30 at a time, but the smaller ones might be 4 to 6, like the little itty bitty ones.
Yeah. Okay. Continue.
So yeah, there's a bit of variety.
So that's what you mean when you say it's like 99.9% of this trade in Nevada is outside. Yeah, does not fall under legal jurisdiction. Yeah, it's kind of surprising. So, and again, just like curiosity around that. But so what happened then? Of course, I did end up learning a ton in so many ways. I can't even tell you how many different types of things I learned. But a big piece of it was this. What is driving people, particularly men, because the clientele is almost entirely men. If it's 97% men, then it's like 2.98% couples, and then it's like it doesn't leave any. It's hardly any. There's really 3% of women pursuing.
No, you'll get couples.
Gotcha. So it's
like almost all men, and occasionally couples, and almost never, but not quite never, women. Uh-huh. And then again, I was looking at the patterns of what I was seeing there, and in those establishments, when somebody comes in as a client, you kind of meet them in the bar parlor area. Well, they have multiple things that you can do. You can get a lineup, which like they parade all the women out, and the guy like sits there and I'll take her.
What?
And then
such a awkward experience.
It can be. Okay. Yeah, it definitely can be. And a lot of times the guys, well, depending on where you're at, some places do it automatically, and like the guy doesn't get a choice because they really want to push to like get him to talk to somebody right away. And then other places it's an optional thing. And yeah, it can be, especially if the guy's forced to do it, that can be really awkward. But it's just to get like a conversation started, because you're not immediately obligated. You're not obligated to anything, period. This is where the negotiation thing comes in. So that was the part that came up in that article, is that once, you spend some time with a potential client, you hit it off, and then you go back to the negotiation room, because not only are all these parameters required to work legally, but you can't have the discussion connecting activities and prices in public. You have to go behind closed doors in private, either in your bedroom or in the negotiation room, depending on what the location has.
Okay.
So what would happen is every time somebody would come in, they would say the same thing. They would say, I'm not like all the other guys out there. I don't just want to get off. I really care about pleasing a woman. Okay, so of course I'm like...
So it meant like, first week, 2 weeks, you probably have a different expectation. And then this just keeps happening. What was that experience like of just... I would imagine you had a different expectation, right?
I didn't really have an expectation.
Okay.
This is a very I don't know.
It's an unexpected thing. Like when you tell me that, I'm
right?
Like, that is...
Which is, again, the guys, they seem to all think that they're unique in this. So I'm like, clearly you're not all talking about this together. You're probably not. That's unlikely.
Yeah,
but why? So why? One, this is very consistent, and it's surprising to all of you, because you think it's not the case for everyone else. So it just it kind of became clear that that's an underlying thread of this male drive to please women. And again, there's the evolutionary psychology involved in that. We touched on this earlier, that there are motivations around how much investment and effort a man should be putting into his reproductive success. One of the evolutionary pressures is around conserving energy. So if he is having all kinds of sexual success because his genetics are so fantastic that his appearance, his physical presentation is so desirable that women are just lining up to collect his genes, then his system needs to say, great job, buddy. Don't put in any more effort. You just, sit here and let them come to you. And then any other man who is not having that experience, his body is saying gee, it's been a while since we had an ejaculation here. You need to be putting in some more effort. And so there's some part of that ties in with the effort to please, to inspire, entice, and encourage a woman to want his attention and connection. And that whole way that we've kind of hijacked the sexual reward system to, create this social cohesion and connection. So somewhere in there, it's built in, and I just, from having seen it over and over, it's clear that maybe not all men, but certainly most of the ones who come with money in hand saying, I want to pay for this experience, is the thing that they want to pay for is the feeling that they have pleased a woman. Wow. So now the trouble with a commercial industry like that is incentives, that if that's what he's wanting to pay for, that's what the woman is incentivized to provide, is the appearance of being pleased, no matter what actually happens. So this is where, of course, faking orgasms, again, because orgasm is the sole metric that anyone can use to think about pleasure. So that's, the best paid women were the best actresses. Some of them were lesbians because they don't even care. They're just there to it's whatever. There's no danger of them being inadvertently actually attracted and wanting to sleep with the guy. Is all about the negotiation power. So that's what happens in the industry. Now, for me personally, I am not into acting around that sort of stuff. That certainly was not a draw for me. And in the whole time that I was there, I actually didn't have to resort to it very often. Knowing this goes back to knowing my body very well. I can actually coach most people to do what it needs at least half the time to produce an orgasm, even if I'm not very excited, even if I'm not really having a good time, so to speak.
And so when you're, in this industry in Nevada, were you then actually taking that approach of being like, I'm not going to just let him fumble through this and pretend? You're like, hey, do this, do this.
It took quite some time to like develop my own strategies around it, because I had the advantage of coming in with a lot of experience and already, having a pretty good sense of my body and knowing what I liked and what I enjoyed. My ability to come up with the cues and the encouragements to get somebody to do what I wanted them to do without in any way offending them or making it seem like, that I was not enjoying the experience. Like that's gotten far, far better over time. But I, right off the bat, I knew what I wanted to encourage them to do, and I, facilitated the experience as best I could. I did suffer to some degree the having to tolerate things that I didn't like, because there's just not a good way around it when you're in an environment where, again, they're paying to believe that they're pleasing you. Mm-hmm. That's what they want to see. The handful of times that I ever resorted to faking it were only when it was clear that the guy was absolutely not going to give up until he believed that it happened. And it's the irony there that is the sort of thing that would cause me to like betray my principles of authenticity because of his complete fixation on believing that I orgasm to prove that he can do that. Like, it's very strange. But so what I also learned about this is that the way in which this is a disservice to society is not a lot of the things that people would normally think about. Like, I don't see it like ethically, morally, or inherently damaging. A lot of it depends on the context and the person and the circumstances and the stigma, but it isn't technically inherent to the work. But what is the problem is that if you're going to pretend to be pleased by things that don't please you, is you give false positive feedback to somebody for what is not working, and they get this encouragement to keep doing more of that same thing. They are misled to thinking that it's effective. It makes them over time worse and worse at their skills in the bedroom, because it keeps reinforcing the things that aren't working. Yeah. If a woman or even a series of women see the same client multiple times, their experience gets worse over time because they're training him to do the wrong things. And his future life is going to be impacted by this, because he's going to continue to be more and more confused as to why all the other women in his life are not pleased by the things that these women are. And so it reinforces that belief that, well, most women just don't seem to like sex very much, and that must be the problem. It's not that I'm not good at it, it's that they just don't like it that much. And these women who like sex so much that they would do it as a job, this is the truth of the matter, is like, they just like sex more. That's why my experience is better here. And these other women, women just don't like sex that much. So,
well, then porn is the only other like widely available educational or anti-educational piece of content on how to please women.
Right. And again, it's those things that are work well dramatically, cinematically on the camera that they want to portray. And similarly, she's appearing to be pleased. Whatever crazy things that they want to come up with that might be the guy's, idea that's some fantasy or stimulating thing to him, she on camera appears to be pleased by that.
Yeah.
Further misleading and, convoluting the situation. So what that led me to start thinking about, again, is kind of back to that premise I said earlier, that like, what if there was like a personal trainer for this kind of subject matter? That like, what if somebody, instead of pretending to like everything that somebody does, what if somebody knew themselves really well and knew how to communicate and ask for what they really liked, and could work on teaching somebody what to do, so that in the long run, their experiences together got better and better over time, and his takeaways into his future life and ability to genuinely please his future partners would improve, and solve some of these mysteries and confusions, and make it make sense and make it easier. And so, yeah, it was about, I was in Nevada about 3 years. Like, you go back and forth, you kind of like stay there for a while and then you go home.
Gotcha.
And so, but about 3 years that I spent like half my time out there. And then the pandemic hit. I came back to Austin after that for the most part. And I spent the next 3 or so years actually doing professional cuddling, which I learned about from a woman that I met out there in Nevada, and which takes a different spin on it and says, instead of planning ahead of time that this is the sexual outcome we're going to have, it says we're actually going to take that off the table. We're going to physically connect, but we're going to keep our clothes on, and we're going to create a different kind of context. Because when you explicitly have that particular outcome on the table, it's very difficult to pay attention to anything else. There's always this distraction of like, okay, so what do I need to do to get there?
Totally.
So cuddling created a very different type of experience, and like, it showed me some of the clues that started to lead to my later practice. And that was, again, how the full body connection doesn't require clothes to come off at all, can be way more arousing for myself and other women, and like lead to the feelings that, we would want to have in a relationship and in a situation that, we do want to lead to sex. So some of the clues about the value of agenda-free physical contact started to come up in that environment. I will say that's a tricky industry right now, because a lot of people do kind of use it as a euphemism and a workaround type thing. That's the front,
right? But then really, when
not always, not by any means. It's just that like it's a mixed bag.
Sure.
You don't necessarily know until you meet someone. Are they the people who do follow this premise, or are the people who say they do this, but really they do everything else? So I did use that for a few years as a way to continue to like learn and explore another angle after, because the like COVID, basically shut things down in Nevada. And so I did choose to do my exploration out there because, in large part, that it was a very safe, controlled, legal environment. Like I'm not big on breaking the law, right? And interestingly, the way the laws are written, like if you take the Texas law, for example, what it says, it lists a bunch of activities that you're not allowed to do in exchange for compensation. And so it's like sexual contact, sexual intercourse, and deviant sexual contact, which is like, like touching, anus or various things.
Ooh, like
things that they would,
it's extra bad.
Extra bad. So they have a list of activities that you're not allowed to agree to compensation for. But what's interesting about that is, if you think about it, the way that it is in Nevada, where you have a situation in which you are allowed to make those agreements, what you're doing is you're committing to do that even if you don't like it or feel like it or want to, right? So what I recognized in terms of how the law actually has a kind of a key insight is that if you don't do that, if you instead say, like, I want to create a container with you in which the possibilities of this are open, but I'm not agreeing in advance that we're going to get there. What I can tell you is if you listen, if you get present with me, and if you listen to what I have to say and share with you, and if you pay attention to what's going on with me and my body, and if you let me guide you to the things that I know work for me, and you follow my directions and you genuinely get me turned on, then we don't have to stop.
Right. And so, and that just is based on the way the law's written in Texas. That's the way it pans out.
And I think a lot I haven't gone and tried to read all the state laws. I just happen to have been in Texas as I'm, in the last few years. But that is the key to what I have found. So my practice in the last 3 years has been around this, has been putting myself out there to connect with, starting mainly with men who were looking for things like escorts and sensual massage, but who it never occurred to them that there might be something better out there. There might be somebody could actually help. Because again, guys showing up with this need and this void that they're trying to fill, it often ties back to this desire to have really good connecting intimate experiences with a woman. Half of them are married and not getting that at home. This goes back to how often it fails, even in relationships and in long-term marriages, that it's not working. And there are many, many out there. There's all kinds of different clients. Some of them are, younger, inexperienced, haven't had relationships, don't know, how to approach women. But then you have a lot of men who, they may have been married for decades and it's not working. They don't understand why. They've hit a point where they just can't keep going on like this. They're not able to function or feel like they can continue as much as they care and, are devoted and want to support their wife. This need for them is too strong that they can't just ignore that. And so they're looking for, how to solve it. So what I've done up until now is kind of trying to reach people in that situation who, in any situation of, they have this need, they don't know how to get it resolved in their own lives. They're looking for somebody that up to now, they've only known how to find people who are kind of in the entertainment and performative side of things. And if I can show up and say, here's something different, here's what I have to offer is an authentic experience that is going to be educational and guide and teach and show you and help you understand what hasn't been working and why, and bring the insights that can allow you to make this better and learn. And many of them are at that point. They're like, I know I haven't done things right, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what's wrong. They're like, all I care about is pleasing my wife. Again, this I hear it over and over again. So then I often end up saying I need you to set aside this focus on pleasing, and I need you to bring it back to focus on enjoying. She actually she is going to be more pleased by you enjoying her than you keep trying to please her. So, it's a big reframe around that. And so, so for the
many questions. I mean, wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the phrase used for this, and to be explicitly clear,
mm-hmm.
reaching an agreement with a guy to, presumably professional cuddling with an open-ended escalation into actual sex, which is, I don't know how you negotiate that. You call this surrogate partnership, right? Is that right?
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting topic in itself. How to what terms to use around this. There is a bit of a professional debate going on in this right now, and there's a woman, Dr. Susan Kay, who lives not too far from here. And she was really central to the formation of that, of surrogate partner therapy as a concept, she worked, and I believe, in like the 80s with the original like Masters and Johnson's folks that did a lot of research around sexuality. And she was part of coming up with a model that they call it a triadic model that involves a therapist and a surrogate partner, meaning a like stand-in, like substitute person who fills a role that would otherwise normally be filled by a romantic partner to practice and explore and reconnect with touch on. So you have the client, the therapist, and the surrogate partner. So she was instrumental in building that industry, but it has remained a very, very tiny niche industry. It hasn't really grown. There's only one or a couple of training institutions that work to certify people in this work, and it's kind of based on a fairly limited model. There is a pop culture example of this that has a large degree of accuracy, I think, although with some dramatic flourishes, as movies tend to do. It's called The Sessions, and it stars Helen Hunt. Yeah, I did put a link on my website for the trailer to it. So, it's been legitimized enough to be recognized in something like that, like a real feature film.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I do link to it because I think it does a decent job at showing a lot of the reality around it. Not perfect, but it does. There's nothing really better out there to help people understand kind of what's going on. And so I gravitated toward the term. Initially, I was just saying surrogate partner because it was presented in a couple of different contexts as like clearly what I was doing was no longer like escort or things like that. So this was more, focusing on the authenticity, the like, I'm going to stand in for this role with you, and we're doing something that is constructive and educational and skill building, and it's not a theatrical fantasy experience. Like trying to make a distinction around that. And to me, that's the entertainment performative versus authentic aspect is the most key distinction in my opinion. So, I was just trying to think of like what made the most sense to me. That other people sort of already recognized this term in some places. It was used on a couple of websites, and so I gravitated towards that. I kept the therapy term off for quite a while because at first it was just an exploration that I knew I could show up in a way that was different than what was, what I was doing in Nevada, but I didn't have a clear method to it yet. So I was just like, well, I can, surrogate partner services of some kind that I can do.
As opposed to surrogate partner therapy.
Right.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to use the word therapy because I didn't feel like I was really qualified for that. I also didn't choose to go down any of the paths of the certification that was out there because when I read the parameters, I didn't feel like I agreed with all of them.
What are a few that you
there
didn't like?
There were some limitations around. One example would be the type of clients that they accept. So I've mentioned that a lot of the people that I've encountered in all of these environments are married, and like that's a restriction where they tend to only see clients who don't have any partner that they could possibly practice these things with. But one of the things that I found is that that would prevent a significant number of people from accessing potential help. And if you have somebody who's at a point where they've decided that like this is not working out for them and they're seeking and exploring in the world, is it better for them to have nowhere to go but somebody who is an entertainment, professional versus somebody who actually has their interest in mind, that actually wants to see them improve? And if they're married and this is outside of their, vows, like I'm, not taking them as a client is not stopping them from exercising that,
Right.
So am I really serving their interests or anyone's interests better by excluding them from the potential of somebody that I can help? That, like, somebody who really, really wants to fix their relationship, but like is just at a complete dead end. Like somebody who absolutely does not want to, end their marriage, but they just don't know what else to do. So they want to learn. And everybody has their own threshold of like, what level of coaching or what level of hands-on work that they want to seek. But I mean, there are plenty of people out there who they're going outside of their relationship for an experience, and they feel like there's no way that they're going to solve a problem or make progress unless they have somebody that they can directly learn from. Like there's so much kinesthetically, like talking about it on this podcast is not going to make everybody an expert at doing these things, right? There's stuff that you can't learn without having a physical interaction with somebody. And so there's a part of that they're like, I can't make any progress here. I'm at a dead end, and I need somebody to show me what this feels like, because I can't figure out how to do it without that kind of help.
Well, it seems like you've thought about this topic
how
to, and that was one of the biggest questions in my mind is like, how do you deal with if a lot of the potential clients who are maybe most in need of this are in relationship? How do you navigate that? And so if you're willing, I'd be curious to like really understand just how you morally and ethically navigate that.
Well, okay, so I first grappled with this back in Nevada because, as I said, at least half the people who walked in were married. So I had to figure that out from then, and this was even in the entertainment side of things. Yeah. So, I thought about several things. First off, whatever negotiations or agreements happened between those two people, I was not a party to that. I'm not involved in the agreements, the vows. I don't know what they did or didn't say or how they feel, or I can speculate, but it didn't involve me. So I'm not going to take responsibility for anybody else's business on that regard. Also, I was not out there. I was in a brothel. Like, they had to walk in the door to talk to me. If they didn't talk to me, they were going to talk to somebody else. I didn't go out there to find them, right? They came looking. So it's not like, like, oh, that couple I see, maybe I can, pull the husband away from his wife, right? It's not that sort of thing. He's the one out there. He's made a decision before he's ever met me. Yeah. Also, I wasn't sure that I necessarily believed in marriage in the traditional sense myself. So I didn't feel like it was that the definitions that people have are necessarily exactly what I would subscribe to. So I kind of felt a little hands off about that. And then maybe what they needed in their life was actually a rock bottom moment where all this comes out. Who am I to say that the best thing for them is not to go outside of their marriage? Like, it's not my place. So I basically said, you know what? They're showing up here. They're going to see somebody. Yeah. If, I'm not helping them in any way by not accepting them as clients. So that was where I came to it out there. And then the other piece I kind of already mentioned is that when it comes to the actual educational part, now I see that if I'm or anybody else who's offering help doesn't make themselves available, then again, guys are just going to end up with practitioners and providers who do not care about their best interest, who have nothing in mind except how they can possibly capitalize on the guy's pain to extract as much money as they possibly can. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I feel like, in a way, I'm sort of letting people down if I don't do what I can, whether it's personally or by helping to expand the industry to make it something that's more accessible, that if the guy is in the situation where he feels he needs to pursue something like this, that he could potentially have an option of somebody who actually cares about his well-being and is gonna try to help him in some way. if he's, he's going to make these choices, and either he can have a better outcome or a worse outcome. He's already going down this path. Yeah. So, and that, of course, again, that's not nearly all the clientele. It just is a big segment of population that would be excluded by some other models out there. And so that was, there were various other things. You had the question about why I didn't pursue that education. And there were some other things about it, just a certain rigidity around certain things, even the triadic aspect of the model. So many of the clients that I see do have therapists that they work with, but I didn't necessarily think that that it was necessary to require clients to have a therapist to sort of supervise the situation with me. I knew they were mostly on a path where they were going to see an entertainment provider if it hadn't happened that they came across somebody who could offer them more.
Yeah.
So I thought just that alone is a step up. And if they also have therapy in their life or want to have therapy in their life and make it a more cohesive thing, great. But I'm not necessarily going to require that they do that as a prerequisite to seeing them.
And in the certified model, that's a requirement.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So that's a piece. They also had certain parameters, and which I didn't extensively look into, but things about the timing and frequency and number of sessions and the rates that they would charge. And there were just a lot of little things.
There's just a lot of rigidity.
Where, right, it just felt like, okay, that's great. And I'm sure they produce a lot of great certified therapists. But I'm doing something else over here, and I'm learning it kind of from the ground up, because all I know is I'm taking what I have experienced before and making it better than it was.
Yeah.
And little by little, it's gotten way better than it was, to where I actually recently started feeling like I should tack on the word therapy to what I do, because what I've come up with now is a method that has a real process and structure to it, that when somebody reaches out to me at this point, I kind of walk them through, okay, so we're going to start with this, and we're going to cover these things, and it's going to take us 1 or 2 sessions to get to this point where you fully understand what it takes to turn me on, for example, and we're not going to open up the boundaries beyond a certain point until you've shown that you get this part, and and lots of other pieces. But it's become a clear process that I take people through that absolutely has had very therapeutic outcomes for quite a few people.
Nice. Okay, so then you've mentioned, you know your body well, and so you're able to coach people through that. And obviously, different people have different turn-ons. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't dispute that there's some generalizations that work, across women. How do you navigate the part that maybe what works for you doesn't work very well for their partner? Well, let's stop there, and then I have more after that.
So in a way, again, evolutionary biology, the bodies that we have that have been around for millions of years, that long before we had language and everything, they're designed to work. The reward systems that are built in are designed to be rewarding for the right behaviors. So I take some issue with the idea that that everybody's so different, or of course everybody is different in many ways, but I think that the way that we're physically and psychologically designed is meant to work. And so I would like to just start with the premise that if we solve some of those things, like what I mentioned about the fact of the movement, it should create a continuous massaging contact with her external parts of her body, that's much more likely to work. Or just the idea that that women do become more receptive when they're able to get out of their mind and into their body, which is in a different way than men typically do. I think just like we could probably look at nutrition and say, essentially, if you eat more nutrient-dense foods and less ultra-processed foods, you're probably going to have a much better outcome.
Yeah.
And, on an individual level, do you have more or less of a tolerance for gluten? That will change what you do. But the baseline, let's just whittle it down to the most basic recipe first and make sure that, if nothing else, we've really exhausted finding out if and how that works for us. Again, before we start trying to test all the other stuff and throw in all the spices and things like that. Like, let's just start there.
Yeah. Man, I thought that was going to be such a good question. Then you nailed it. Okay, so then what about... Okay, so a lot of this, your work is focused on what the guy can bring to the relationship to improve this aspect. For sure, there's going to be cases where the woman in this marriage has work to do as well. Maybe not necessarily how do you navigate that, but just what do you think about that situation? And let's say a guy has entered an agreement, he's done work, he's had a therapeutic healing experience, and now he's like, I think my wife needs some help. I'm sure this has come up for you, so I just kind of want to get your insights on it.
Well, okay, so I've come to where I'm at, starting from where I was, and I've taken a particular path. So I came from an environment where I worked to understand the male client driven entertainment industry and take what I learned there and turn it into something that primarily so far has served male clients from an authentic perspective. There's much farther to go from here. This is just the farthest I've gotten so far, because it's absolutely clear that, women in many ways would be more receptive to this information than a lot of men are. The clients that I see are the ones who have reached a level of desperation that they're looking for something to solve their problem. But like you said, guys aren't talking about this sort of stuff in the locker room.
Yeah.
Unlike women who are talking about as much as we know to talk about all the time, but missing some of these key pieces of information. So moving forward, some of the work that I want to do, there's quite a few different angles that I want to take it from here. Some of it includes training women who are in the entertainment industry to shift towards authenticity and the opportunities that could make their lives better, and they could still continue to enjoy making significant amounts of money, making people's lives better instead of potentially worse. So that's a piece. There's also just women in general looking for more kind of self-improvement things, like wanting to, when I mention these concepts to women, they get pretty excited too. They're like, yeah, that's exactly what I think and feel and want. And so there's a lot of resonance and an opportunity to reach women who are more driven to seek those kind of solutions and things, and who could then also, if they knew some ways to communicate, which also is part of what I've worked on, of how do I share and say these things and ask for these things without hurting my partner's feelings? How do I frame it? I would love it so much if you could do this, as opposed to stop that.
Stop doing that, yeah, for sure.
And switch once in a while. You still have to say, okay, please don't do that. Please don't do that. But not the belly button. Oh, don't. I do have, let's see, I'm hoping that this works out. There's another couple doing a couples retreat that I'm hoping to do a workshop with in a couple of weeks, that, we'll do some educational stuff and have them work through some touch exercises. There's a lot of different ways to reach people than what I've reached so far. I'm kind of I'm at a point where there's been a certain culmination of what I've done based on the path that got me here, and then now some doors are starting to open to start communicating things to other people in other ways, and just in fact, the chance to be on this podcast.
Totally.
Because as you can tell, I've talked through these topics many, many times, but it's almost always been either one-on-one with clients or in private conversations. And so there are things that I really want to get out there more, and to help people to understand that, again, a lot of this stuff is not that complicated. The path to get to where we want to go is like a pleasant and desirable one, and and we can be teammates on this. Like, it's a win-win situation. There's nothing about this that is either party taking advantage or getting something out of the other. It's like the ultimate collaboration of, we both want this to be really good, and we can both like show up for that, and it's not taking us outside of, I'm not asking people to, swing upside down on a trapeze. I'm like, just like feel what's happening for a little while and notice what's happening. And then if you're not, if you feel like something's inhibiting it, start doing some detective work and realize, what you need to show up for. It's like, there's a lot of little, things that, like, it's not crazy. So demystifying all this stuff, and again, that always makes me think of Tantra comes up a lot, because that's another thing, and maybe in the spice category. I get a lot of people who come to me and they say, I tried Tantra, and they just like told me to do a bunch of breathing things, and it didn't do anything. And, so there are a lot of people out there who are trying to sort of teach people things, but often from a perspective that's got this very like esoteric, mystical, like energy connection stuff, which I'm not necessarily saying that's wrong, but from my perspective, like, we could just bring it down to some very basics and some like tangible, concrete, like things we can notice and pay attention to, that we don't have to, I don't know, they're not mystical concepts. They're like, is there a response to your touch that you're feeling? Like,
Totally. Yeah.
Very simple idea. So I would really like to help just, again, demystify and normalize like healthy sexual experience and expression among people, and to, reduce the stigma and whether it's it's like ethical, moral qualms. Like, this is just something that we want to cultivate together, that's going to improve our lives, and to get the most like enjoyment and satisfaction out of our time, as earthly humans together. And, it's part of why I feel like it's a real calling to me to share the things that I've learned through all the experiences that I've had, because knowing the depth of the pain and suffering that's out there. Again, it's a huge industry, because there's so much pain and suffering that people are willing to pour an immense amount of money and resources into, because they are trying to get a resolution of some kind. They don't know. They don't know anything else to do. They just like their suffering is capitalized on by this like draw of porn, of the entertainment side. And so imagine, one, how much better people's lives would be on an individual basis if they like could feel like they could easily connect with their partner around this. And then two, the impact it would have on society if all of those resources weren't going down the drain, and instead went to things like productively into making everyone's lives better.
Yeah.
So that's I feel pretty driven to do what I can to take what I've learned and make some kind of impact like that.
Well, I'm excited to see it unfold even further for you. I mean, you've already taken this much, much further than I think many would have. You've been very bold, and even just being inspired by a random email you got, and then not being the typical person that one would expect to go pursue that. Sensing that intuitive call and then going through with it. Wow. And I guess one of the biggest takeaways for me is actually, and I noticed this when we first met and we're talking around the table, how naturally and easily you talk about sex and topics like it, which is part of what, excited me for doing the episode, because it would be practice for me personally, just the personal outcome of that. But, now other people can listen to it and be like, wow, I listen to people talk out loud about sex for almost 3 hours. So I guess maybe I could have a 4-minute conversation with my partner.
Right. Yeah. The normalization of it. Again, like
Yeah.
this is totally fine and okay to talk about. We should be talking about it. This, that somebody asked me recently, like if there was a message that like the billboard message or the like something you could get out there to everybody. What came to mind was just the "you're not alone," meaning that I hear from so many people these common threads of stories of all of these challenges that they're experiencing. And it's so clear that everybody feels like this problem is unique to them and it's shameful and they can't talk about it. They can't share it. Many people tell me things. They say, I have never told a single person, in my life about this problem. Like not even my therapist
Yeah.
And so knowing that like the not talking about things is a big part of the problem, right? If we don't open up and share about what's going on, we're just going to continue to feel isolated and like there's something wrong with us, and the shame in there and not being able to find a solution and not knowing who to go to but these are common threads. This is, things again, it's like, I'm not like all the other guys out there. It's like,
Actually, bro.
Actually you are. But apparently you don't talk to any of them about this. So none of you would know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I get the sense that, like, you're at you've been on the journey. Mm-hmm. But, like, we were just talking about as I raised a few questions, I loved your authentic answer of, like, that's still stuff I want to learn how to do and explore. Mm-hmm. I get the sense there's a lot more to come from you and your work. So now let's talk about how people can follow along and, learn more about what you're doing, whether it's through writing or more podcasts or you said you have a book on the horizon that you'd like to put out and even potentially clients. So how should people find you? Let's talk about your website, any socials, things like that.
Sure. Yeah. Right now, you mentioned a book. I have working title is In the Driver's Seat, right? Putting kind of men in that position as a man's roadmap to mastering confidence, intimacy, and passion, right? So we go through all the different pieces of that puzzle. So that's in the works. I have some articles and PDFs on my client-facing website. That is at evolvesessions.com. There's no D in the middle, although I probably should register that. evolvesessions.com. So there's a bit like the 3 phases of female arousal, a much more concise version than what we when we went through today. That's there. In the longer term, my kind of overarching brand is Recivilized Woman, which is .com for that as well, recivilizedwoman.com. And that's because this, sexuality piece is just one of the pillars of a, complete, holistic, flourishing life of all the things that we need. And again, the nutrition, fitness, mental health, relationships, sexuality, family, faith of whatever kind that we have, all these different aspects. And so that's where I kind of try to bring all of those pieces under a larger umbrella. But this one in particular, I feel is underserved by most people out there who address holistic health, that this element isn't brought as front and central as it should be. And again, just the scope of the industry tells us like how important it is in people's lives. So it really warrants more attention. So that was 2 websites, a book title, and I do have a Twitter at Reciv Woman and an Instagram of Recivilized Woman. I haven't been too active on those so far, but those are out there as well.
Gotcha. Well, man, thank you for the discussion, the honesty, authenticity, vulnerability, all of it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I even feel inspired to be more bold in talking to guys about it and bringing this type of stuff up. So, you've inspired me. I'll do my part to get guys more comfortable talking out loud about this.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for them to watch this podcast because this has been great. And again, it's been a great opportunity for me to get to say these things in a way that more people can actually hear it. So, yeah, I can't thank you enough.
All right, until next time. That wraps up another episode. As always, thank you for listening. You can learn more about the podcast, myself, and the mission at the website, which is mindstatepodcast.com. I'm also on Instagram at the Mindstate Podcast. The Facebook page can be found at facebook.com/mindstatepodcast. Thank you so much.